We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom, Loss, and Dom. We're dressed as the two successful teams in the city.
Yeah, no, we gotta get. We have the.
We need a new blanket for that table. We need a new tablecloth.
Well, I didn't think about that. I was thinking about all the photos that we have, and
yeah,
we need to add some bandits. I mean,
oh, we do need to add some bandits because they're 2-0 right now, and
they actually win.
They actually win championships. Only team in Buffalo to do so. NLL trophy is the only one that's actually made its way to the city, but maybe a Lombardi will this season. Stanley Cup, not so much. That will not be happening. We'll get all into that though. Sabres are now at a 10-game losing streak. Not to start out on a sour note, but I mean, kind of have to. It's just ridiculous. But the Bills, they roll into Detroit, the Motor City. Tony Romo's on the broadcast saying, "Oh, the Motor City miracle is going to happen in the fourth quarter. Like, let's stop that." But they end up taking care of business. 48-42 was the score. You asked if they needed to go over 35 to win last week on betting on the Bills, and it looks like they did. That came a little closer than I would have liked, especially that near onside kick recovery for Detroit. But Tara Johnson, he had that pretty locked down. But before we dive in here, what was going through your head watching this game? I mean, it could be a possible Super Bowl matchup. It turned out to be a track meet. By the end of it, it was just score, onside kick at 12 minutes, onside kick in the last minute. Pretty eventful. What do you think?
Honest God, one of the things that was in my mind throughout the game was we've now seen it in back-to-back weeks. Josh Allen against the Rams in SoFi Stadium, which I think is a dome.
It's like dome-ish. It's closed.
Yeah,
closed roof.
I think it's closed. And then obviously Ford Field in Detroit is also a dome. And it was like, man, like, did the Bills make a mistake not getting a dome? Because we also saw this, a couple weeks ago with the Niners game.
Yeah.
Him being able to still function in terrible weather.
Very well compared to
Purdy.
Yeah.
But then it's also like you see these two games and it's like, I don't know, man. If we just had him in a dome, like I think he also might have his. I don't know. It was an interesting thought that popped in my head.
It is
throughout the game.
It definitely is interesting. But I mean, Allen can play in both. It's good to have a quarterback that can play in both.
Yeah,
and be successful either way.
Versatile.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the national media all day? MVP race locked up.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the top 5. I think it's very interesting that we discuss something. You know what I thought too throughout the game? I honestly thought this. I don't know why this came in my mind. It mostly came at the end of the game. How many? The Bills potentially may have just beaten the 1 seed in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess they are the current 1 seed at the moment.
Yes.
On the road, they beat the Chiefs, who are the current 1 seed in the AFC, and they potentially, with Jets, could potentially get to 14-3. How many Pro Bowlers are on this roster? And it kind of, or people that might get all Pro votes, like it is kind of intriguing to me about that for the Bills. Like if you look at it, you'd probably say, okay, Josh
Allen for sure.
Allen's a Pro Bowler.
Mm-hmm. And probably all pro this season, right?
Probably. Mm-hmm. I mean, either first or second team, depending on what happens at the end of the season.
Right.
But then after that, it kind of is like, is there another lock? Right. I would assume that Deion Dawkins, who's made the Pro Bowl the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I think he's had a Pro Bowl caliber season at left tackle. I'd assume he goes. Defensively, I don't know. Groot's had a good year, but again, it's hard to make it at the edge position.
Mm-hmm.
You would say that Christian Benford deserves it.
Yeah, he does.
But cornerback is kind of a weird where you kind of like wait your turn a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little hierarchy there. So I don't know. I don't think they get a defensive guy.
I don't think so either. You're right. Josh is like the only lock.
Josh, I think Deion, because he's been a 3-time Pro Bowler. Right. Spencer Brown's been really good, but right tackles, it's hard to make as a right tackle. Connor McGovern's been really good at center, but it could be
it's tough as center.
There's only 2 spots at center. I think James Cook.
I was going to say Cook might have a shot.
He made the Pro Bowl last year, I think.
And he's had a better season this year.
Close, not as quite as many yards, but more touchdowns.
More touchdowns, yeah.
And you would probably say like Henry has 1 spot, and then there's 3 running back spots. So can he sneak into one of those other 2 spots?
Yeah,
probably, because he's been better than Stevenson. And if you just go by division, like he's probably been the best AFC East running back. I mean, you can make a case between him or Achane. The AFC South, like I think Mixon may be in the mix for a Pro Bowl spot. Jonathan, I think he's been better than Jonathan Taylor. I think he's been better than Jacksonville. I think he's been better than Tony Pollard.
Well, he doesn't drop footballs before entering the end zone like Jonathan Taylor, so
true.
It's pretty good.
He's been better than the AFC West running backs, I think. So I think it's going to be him, Mixon, and Henry. So that's probably a Pro Bowler. But then Kincaid got banged up, so I don't think he's going to make the Pro.
Mm-hmm.
So
does Khalil Shakir have any shot?
Nope,
no shot.
Not shot. Because there's only 4 guys that make it in the AFC, and there's no way he's going to make it.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny to think about that. There's probably like 3 guys that are going to make the Pro Bowl. Maybe if Benford. If they overwhelm,
if there's an overwhelming vote for him,
if the new guy in the second, then if you look at they're all pro too at the same time. Like Josh, probably the current moment is the first team All Pro.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like I think maybe Benford. All pro is a little different than Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl, you get the fan vote, you get like coaches and stuff. All Pro is strictly media, and sometimes those guys are kind of go more in depth. Not just so much name brand.
Yeah,
so.
It's not. Oh, that's my quarterback. I'm going to vote for him for the Pro Bowl, like the fan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of in depth than I think people could see the season Benford has, and I think he can make a first team All Pro potentially.
I see all the Pro Bowl voting for Josh Allen on Twitter. Yeah. It's like every 3 posts. It's just 80 retweets.
I don't think there's anyone else. Deion, I think, could make a case to be on an All Pro team. Listen, he made first team All Conference last year, but I don't think he's going to make an All Pro team. It's just hard to left tackle. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, so maybe he gets enough votes to make second team. But, with Tristan Wirfs out there, Malata's having a really good year. Ronnie Stanley's having a pretty good year, too, in Baltimore. So it's just hard to make it. Laramie Tunsil's a good left tackle for Houston. So it's only 2 guys can make it, unfortunately, so on either one of the teams. So, I mean, it looks like it's going to be Josh and maybe Benford, and I'm not saying there could be other people that get votes. I assume Deion Dawkins gets some votes.
Yeah.
James Cook potentially, but it
just might not make the Pro Bowl roster.
No, All Pro roster.
Or All Pro roster.
Yeah, but McGovern maybe gets some votes. I think maybe Terrell Bernard gets some votes. But yeah, it just kind of like that kind of makes a broader point of like the Coach of the Year aspect of like I understand that it's going to go to Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, and he had he made Sam Darnold a Pro Bowl quarterback. They're 12-2, but like I feel like every year with McDermott. Listen, I know he hasn't won the Super Bowl, and I know he kind of like chokes in big moments.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, like the dude just kind of wins.
Yeah,
right. And it's kind of like
he's winning coach,
and it's kind of like I think he's one of 5 coaches now that has had won 11 games in 5 straight
seasons. Yep.
Yeah, of Tony Dungy, I think it's Tom Landry, Bill Belichick, and Andy Reid. I mean, just like Hall of Famers, and then
he's there with them.
I think Tony Dungy's in the Hall of Fame. I might be wrong, but he won the Super Bowl.
He's up there though, and he's winning games.
And you look at it also. I mean, it's 6 straight seasons of 10+ wins because they won 10 games in 2019. They win one more game this season if you count the playoffs. That's 12+ wins in 5 straight seasons because they've won. Wild card rounds when they won 11 games in the regular season years past. I mean, he's had years of bad rosters. So, I don't know. I always feel like he kind of gets underrated and crapped on.
Mm-hmm. For those. Here's the thing. What I've noticed. The game time decision-making where there is a blunder sticks out more because they do win so much. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, they lose those kind of games.
Right. Like the Rams game, right? Like
Sure.
That's one that'll stick with you 13 seconds. Of course, it's a divisional playoff game. That's going to stick with you. Houston sticks with me. They had abysmal coaching performance from both sides at the end of that game. But clock management. But I think he might have a shot. He's up there, like you said, with those Hall of Famers. So it'll be interesting to see. The season's coming to an end in a couple weeks. The Bills have a run of the AFC least coming up here. They'll play the Patriots for the first time this season after already clinching the number 1 seed in the AFC East. And they flexed that to a 425, and they're dressing like the Patriots from all those years back. And you can hear all about that. We're not going to go too far in depth on that. But betting on the Bills coming up this Friday for your game preview. I do, before we dive into the Dom 5, I like to highlight the players. I like to give the guys a pat on the back for their performance throughout the contest. But there are a couple here that I want to do. One, the MVP himself, Joshua Patrick Allen, 23 for 34, 362 yards, 2 touchdowns on the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He almost got 3 and 3 again. James Cook had a great day, 14 carries for 105 yards with 2 touchdowns. And, the wide receivers were not the biggest factor in the air. Ty Johnson just so happened to be 5 receptions for 114 yards. I mean, what a performance from Ty Johnson, and arguably one of the better third down backs in the league. And he ended up really showing out in the receiving game and Ray Davis even had a touchdown too. James Cook, as mentioned, and Ty Johnson was the only running back without a touchdown, but he was the leading receiver of the day. So can't really be too upset. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, both had some pretty good catches in there. Looking, Keon Coleman, that big catch for 64 yards. It's about all he did. And then on defense, I mean, it was Swiss cheese ? I don't know. I don't want to talk too poorly on the defense because Detroit has a great offense, even when they did lose David Montgomery in the beginning. But I don't know. I think I don't want to get too far into my analysis before we get into the Dom 5 because
I don't think the defense was as Swiss cheese as you're saying.
No, I'm not. Swiss cheese might have been an exaggeration, a little hyperbole.
They gave up 42 points. They gave up a lot of yards, but they had 3 scores for the majority of the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
they were up multiple possessions for throughout the game, so it's a little bit of empty calories.
My guy came through too, Big Ed.
Yeah,
he had a lot better day than he has this season.
I'm not saying that
it was great.
It resolves everything for the defense. I think there are some things that were problematic on Sunday, but at the same time, again, we saw the D-line come alive, and we saw some plays made by Elam, and we saw some plays made from Benford. So it was good to see. I again, was it a perfect performance? No, I thought you saw some schematic changes. We saw the Bills match the heavy personnel with 3 linebackers. We saw a double DB blitz. They tried some different things, and listen, Goff made some nice plays, and they were some close potential, outcome or tip passes that if they would have fell incomplete would probably change the outcome of the game. But the Bills really dominated and controlled the game. I don't think the final score really shows that, or the box score.
No, the 48-42 it looks a lot closer than it actually was.
They were ahead they got up quick, and they pretty much were up 2 touchdowns.
They had the lead the entire game. That was it.
Going, though, to the Dom 5.
Yes, the Dom 5. There's a little air horn there.
Number 1, Josh Allen nearly locks up the MVP. So, I'm trying to word this properly, but I don't think he locked it up. I think that's it's tough to say he locked it up because there's 3 weeks left.
And there's a lot of
football left.
Yeah.
And Lamar's having a really good year. He has a 120 passer rating. Lamar's having one of the best quarterback seasons ever. I think in the last 25 years on an EPA per play basis, Lamar's having the 20th best quarterback season in the last 25 years, and Josh is currently having the 10th. So they're both having not just MVP worthy seasons, but all time kind of seasons here. Again, I do think that there was, Lamar, again, the Lions defense is banged up. Some former PFF guy was trying to make a point where it's like, oh, I don't think really Josh separated himself that much from Lamar because, Lamar had a really good performance and so did Josh. And what's really difference between the Giants defense and the Lions defense at the proper moment for all their injuries. And, yeah, I mean, that's a valid point, I guess. But at the same time, I think it's a little different when you're on the road playing Detroit versus on the road playing a bad Giants team that's starring Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito. And they don't have a threat of winning the game at all. So that's I feel like that was a little different from just the overall teams that were playing. So, and at the end of the day, while the stats, I think there's some stats that favor Josh and there's some stats that may favor Lamar at the end. I think we saw last year really the precedent that was set, which is, the MVP, it's not just about the stats. It's about, team success does play. You have to be able to win. And you had to have moments against teams, right? And
not the Giants.
And Lamar had an MVP moment last year against the Niners on Monday Night Football, and all of us watched. And I think we've seen now these last 4 weeks, Josh really have just moments after moments, right? The 4th and 2, the touchdown against the Chiefs, the throwing and getting a reception touchdown on the same play against the Niners. Obviously, the losing effort against the Rams, but putting up 42 points with the 3-3 performance on 3 on the ground, 3 in the air. And then, obviously, on Sunday with that performance as well, I think he had over 400 yards.
Combined, yeah.
Again, of total offense and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, and a 95.2 QBR and 122 passes. I mean, just another really all-time great performance from Josh. And so, yeah, I think he's pretty much wrapped it up. As long as the Bills take care of business these next 3 games. We'll see what happens with Lamar. He has some pretty big games left. But, again, I think another thing that's really working against Lamar is, 1, he's won 2 of these already. 2, he won the last one, so it's hard to win back-to-back because it's just voter fatigue at this point for both reasons. And 3, another thing that's, again, working against him is, again, how unfair this is, or this is just the truth in the voting process. These are human beings voting on it. These aren't computers.
Right.
They believe in narratives and their own things and whatever, and they all have different thought processes. That, simply put, Josh has never won the MVP. And Josh has been really close 3 times in the top 5, and I think that aids in Josh's favor of potentially winning the MVP is that he's never won one, and people may be like, this is his MVP, this is his moment to finally get one. Also, we've seen now the defense, again, I don't think they're a Swiss cheese as you said, but they did give up 42-plus points in back-to-back games, and we saw Josh kind of carry the Bills. Not so much carry them on Sunday, but I definitely carried them against the Rams, but to near wins, right? And I think that's an MVP performances back-to-back, and Lamar had 60% new offensive line, and their defense isn't good, but I think then the Bills' defense not playing that great kind of showed both defenses aren't that good, potentially. Like, they're both kind of just maybe average. And then, unfortunately for Lamar, again, he just has better weapons than people would think for the Bills.
Right.
And he has Derrick Henry, who, again, is probably going to would be a first-team All-Pro in a lot of years at running back, but Saquon's having a great season. And then Saquon, tough, I just want to touch on him real fast. Like, he had 60 yards against the Steelers, and they won by 14 points, so it's kind of...
Yeah,
he needs to have, like, a great last 3 weeks to really...
Yeah. You saw...
Josh is minus 700. I mean, I think the betting community believes it's over, but...
Yeah. ESPN bet had him at minus 900 this
not,
morning, which is crazy.
I don't think it's
crazy.
Quite over, but it's just about.
Yeah, and as much as you don't want to say wins aren't a quarterback stat, right? Like, that's what we like to say. That's what a lot of people say. It, like you said, in an MVP vote, they're going to look at team record and how the team's doing overall. Because Joe Burrow would be the leading MVP favorite right now if the Bengals actually had a solid record. Look at his stats. I mean, that was your pick right there. You could have been 100% right if the Bandits got off to it.
I think it would be close if the
with
Bengals
Burrow and Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the 3 of them are close. Again, I think, Josh having the wins, I think, matters, and I think the voter fatigue.
Yeah. Right.
I think that matters.
Well, that's what you mentioned, the human being aspect of it. I don't think is mentioned enough. It's just they're not a computer. They're loving the story. They want the story, the narrative, and Josh Allen might be giving them that this year. And a lot of the national media says it's locked up. I'm kind of with you on I don't want to say it's over till the fat lady's singing and the nosebleeds, but he is having moment after moment, it seems, doing things back-to-back weeks that nobody's done before in the modern era of the NFL. So go Josh.
All right, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I had a double up on Josh points. I just felt like it was, I don't know, he just had that kind of game again. Joe Marino on Locked On Bills had a question about, is this the best Bills single season of all time? Right? And I was thinking about it, and I'm going to say yes. Because I think there's a couple people that have, I don't want to say a right to it, but an argument to be had. Like Bruce Smith won 2 Defensive Players of the Year. 1990, he had 19 sacks, which I think is the single-season franchise record. So he probably has the best defensive season of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Kelly made first-team All-Pro back in 91. He had a really great season that year. Problem for Jim Kelly is that he finished second in the MVP voting that year to his teammate Thurman Thomas, who was the last Bills to win the MVP in 91. Mm-hmm. So I think Thurman probably edges Jim Kelly off the list there. So I think this is the greatest quarterback season, I guess, in Bills history. I think this tops 2020 Josh too as well. And then it becomes OJ. He won MVP in 73 with 2,000 rushing yards in 14 games. I don't know. So I feel like this is the season for Josh that I think he sets himself apart from the rest of the, a lot of great players that played in the Buffalo Bills franchise. But I think this is the greatest season for not just a Bills quarterback, but for a Bills player.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. Nothing to add there. He's elite, the elite of the elite on the Buffalo Bills. Historically, I mean, you just watch this guy, and how are we born at the time where we can watch a guy like this play in the NFL is the question. Pretty damn cool.
Yeah. And then so number 3, Ed shows up. Ed Oliver was discussed a lot in the media this week.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely ripped him on this show.
Friday, he was my guy though.
Listen,
I was rooting.
He had 9 Some people have him at 10. Some people have him at 9 QB pressures. I mean, he delivered, and they needed him to. I mean, he had the sack, fumble.
Mm-hmm.
He had other pressures. He had plays in the run game. I mean, it was the best game at Oliver's. Maybe his best game of his career, but definitely his best game of the season. And it was a welcome sight, and it's something that needs to continue for this Bills defense to play up to their level of. Greg Rousseau, I thought had a good game. I thought Von Miller played well. I think you saw today the news that Tyler Grable was activated off IR, and the D lineman that we knew a D lineman was probably going to be the one that was probably going to be cut, and it was Casey Tuhill.
Yes.
So that was a little bit of a surprise-ish. I kind of thought, honestly, I was going to make a point about that today, that I think Tuhill would be the one that would get cut, just because I think Javon Solomon played pretty well on Sunday. Smoot's back, and I think those guys deserve more reps over Tuhill. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens throughout the next couple weeks of the season. I mean, listen, the Bills, again, we talked about their schedule, but those are bad offensive lines they play against New England twice and the Jets. So it would be nice to see Ed kind of, for these next 3 weeks, continue on this heater and get hot going into the postseason.
Yeah, that's the perfect time, too.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it can't be a one-off.
He was a difference maker.
He was, and because the secondary was so banged up, the front lines, they took it into their own hands. They created all the pressure on Jared Goff and really got the job done. You can't really ask for a better game other than, nitpicky, hey, get a couple more sacks. But they did what they needed to do, and Ed Oliver just hopefully keeps it up. And like you said, it is the perfect time playing these bad offensive lines to really rev it up for the postseason, depending on what seed you end up.
Yep. Number 4, the Bass roller coaster continues.
Jeez.
I don't really know what to say.
Isn't it the shortest miss of this season, the 24 yards? I
Yeah.
think?
Shortest miss of the season at 24 yards.
Mhm.
Obviously, made the 50-yarder, made a kick earlier from 41. So, yeah, I don't know what to say other than, it just continues. Definitely not going to trust him at any type of kick, holding your breath,
yeah.
PAT or anything. But they're stuck with him, so we're just going to continue with the roller coaster. He did, I guess, redeem himself after the miss by making that 50-yarder, because that was a big miss. That was a big make,
Mm-hmm.
to make it a 3-possession game at the time, and then he made another big-ish kick to make it a 2-touchdown game. So
Yeah.
they had to drive down the field, and not kick a field. They stopped the Lions from potentially just kicking a field goal to make it a 1-possession game late. They had to drive down and score a touchdown, which bled clock and let them only had to do that onside kick. So I don't think there's any much to add. So
No, it continues.
number 5.
Yep.
Back 7 health getting scary. You're down your 2 starting safeties, and then your number 3 safety goes down, and then all of a sudden Kareem Jackson, who hasn't played a single snap all season, is playing in crunch time. And,
Yeah, he gets the call.
so that's tough. I thought Kyrie Irving played really well. Again, if the refs are going to let Kyrie Irving play and be physical, I think he could be a guy that could be a starting cornerback opposite Christian Benford in this league, which is going to be nice, especially for Rasul Douglas, not only just being banged up,
As he ages, too.
but as he is a free agent at the end of the season,
Mm-hmm.
may make that decision a little bit easier.
He did play well, Kyer. I was very pleased with him.
And then finally, the linebackers, Dorian Williams gets banged up, and then Balin Spector comes in for literally one play in the 3-linebacker set and loses Dan Skipper, who is 6'9".
Yeah, that was terrible.
For a touchdown. And then, Matt Milano kind of, it's unfortunate to say, but kind of classic Matt Milano, probably pulled his groin or something and couldn't go. And
Yeah.
Dorian was banged up, and they were playing Spector, and he just got lit up. And so badly that they had to put Dorian Williams in at the last drive to kind of redeem it. So, not great, Bob. Hopefully Dorian is healthy, because I think he's going to be important. I think we're closing in on Dorian Williams being the starting linebacker outside opposite of Terrell Bernard than I mean, if they get the 1 seed divisional round, but they get the 2 seed the wild card round. I think Matt Milano's really struggled, and now that he's banged up again,
Dorian might have to just.
I think Dorian might be it. So we'll see.
And he's played well this season, stepping up into that role. There are things, of course, you can always look at and nitpick, but overall, he's been solid in the games he's played. So, yeah, it's unfortunate the injury bug has bit this late in the season back there. I mean, Micah Hyde's got to get up to his playing weight. Just feed him some chicken wings, get him a little stocky. But I hate to say this because I don't want to sound like I'm too confident going into these 3 divisional games because you never know what can happen, especially seeing a team twice within 3 weeks. This is the time for them to get healthy, though, at this point in the season.
Absolutely.
So it's not like they have the run of games that are must win at the end of the season like last season, you know. So speaking of, before we move on, question for you. Pat Mahomes, high ankle sprain. He's played on it before. He's tough through it. Does he do it to maintain the 1 seed, or does Carson Wentz get the call? What do you think?
Yeah, they said he practiced in full today, so I expect him to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely interesting because they have a kind of a buffer. They have 2 games lead over the Bills, so they can afford to drop a game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I would potentially sit him because, it's his plant foot, so it's going to be hard for him to push off and protect himself.
Yeah, and their offensive line is interesting.
You have massive offensive tackle issues,
mm-hmm.
and then you're playing Houston and Pittsburgh in back-to-back weeks, and I mean,
you have 3 games in 10 days.
And those, yes, and then they have Daniil Hunter and Willie Anderson Jr. for Houston, and T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith for Seattle, the Steelers. So I think it's tough against those offensive tackles with those edge rushers. Like, I think he's going to be hit a lot. He got hit a lot against Cleveland, and that's why he got injured. So I would be very cautious. I think the Steelers game is more important for the Chiefs. So I think it would be wise for them to sit him, say, hey, we'll give you 10 days to get ready for Christmas against the Steelers, and then you have another 10-ish days or whatever till you play again against the Broncos, and hopefully, they're able to win the Steelers and Broncos games and clinch the 1 seed, and then all of a sudden after the Broncos game, you have 2 weeks until you play again. So I think that's kind of how I would rule fit. Like,
yeah,
if they had a 1-game lead, maybe I would think differently, but they have a 2-game lead. I think it'd be wise. I don't think they're going to, because I think he's an ultra competitor and wants to be out there. But
yeah, it's like Allen with his injuries; he doesn't want to miss time. So
I don't think it's really that. I think,
they want to play.
I think a better example might be Terrell Bernard last year, who wanted to play badly through a busted ankle against the Chiefs and was crying when Brandon Beane told him we couldn't let you play through it. We had to protect himself. So I think it's more of that example. I mean, I don't think Josh. Josh played through a broken hand.
That Minnesota game a couple years ago.
Yeah, probably had some elbow injuries, but. Again, not questioning Josh's toughness, but I mean, Mahomes, it's a little different because
that's his plant foot, like you said.
Now he's had multiple ankle injuries.
Is it the same one? I'm trying to think. I don't remember what one it was.
The other one was left.
Interesting.
I think his left one was injured earlier in the year. He's had problems with it. So, a little Steph Curry.
Yeah, yikes. But no, the Bills, they're in a solid spot right now. Pittsburgh dropped a game too, so that gives them a little cushion in the 2 seed, and whatever ends up happening happens. And if they're the 2 seed and a lot of games have to come through Buffalo, I'm game for that too. Make as many teams come through here as you can. But anything else you want to add in here before we inevitably move on to this dumpster fire of another organization in the Buffalo area?
Nope.
Well, I'm going to do it again this week. Instead of the goal horn, we get the echo fart, because it is just, they've lost 10 games in a row, and they're playing tonight as we're recording this on Tuesday. You'll probably be listening on Wednesday. It's just abysmal. There's no other words to say it. Lindy Ruff doesn't even know what's going on. It's the toughest solve he's ever had to deal with, he says. It's just, I'm so frustrated. I know you are too, because you're like, more of a Sabres aficionado than myself. Only since we've really started doing the pod and then I started working around them that I've had to really pay attention. But this is just, you're 1 point away from the Canadiens. What is happening? Like, how the hell do you let it get this bad? 2 weeks ago, it was like, oh, they're close to a playoff spot. They're fighting their way in. And then you can't win a game. They haven't won a game at all in December. And I don't think that changes tonight.
It's just kind of funny.
I'll look like an idiot if tomorrow they win, but
it's just kind of funny looking at their schedule and just L.
Yes.
Yeah, just brutal. I mean, they're up 3-1. They're up 3-1, and all of a sudden they give up 3 goals in 5 minutes, and they're down 4-3 going into the third period. It's just kind of very typical. I mean, the Capitals game, typical 2-2 with 10 minutes to go, and can't find a way to finish. Same thing, Rangers, 1-goal loss. I mean, it's just very typical for the Sabres right now. They just can't finish games. They can't get the big goal when they need to. And yeah, not having your best player, Rasmus Dahlin, and Tage, who's going through God knows what because he's sucked ever since he's been back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think there's a lot for us to discuss right now because I think it's first. I just think it's bad. Honestly, I'm being completely honest, and you could agree with me or not. Like, I just think it's bad conversation because
it is. It's filler to just talk about a topic when there's nothing to talk about.
It's not like there's nothing to talk about. That's wrong. But it's more of like it's just so negative, and it's just so bad for the soul. It's so bad for the soul. I mean, it's the same points that we've been hitting on. It's the same points we've been hitting on all season. So nothing really changes. I mean, no one's been fired.
No one looks to be nearing getting fired.
Same bad power play. Same players playing. I mean, Terry Pacula comes to Montreal and says, "Come on, give a little tap on Kevin Adams' butt and says, I believe in you." Okay,
that ain't doing it.
Whatever. Where's the pink slip?
Yeah, seriously.
So yeah, I mean, no one's traded. Like, it's the same team. So I just don't understand. What. I have no idea how the Sabres sell tickets because I don't know how you sell this team to anyone. So I mean, this might be the shortest Sabres talk we've ever had because I generally am speechless.
Me too.
Because it's just pathetic. I mean, there's no other word. The best.
It's
word.
pathetic. You're absolutely right.
It's pathetic. It's a waste of time. The Sabres game was on during the Bills game. You're looking at scores, and it's like, oh my God, it's 3-1. Jack Quinn scores twice, and again, as I said earlier, like they just blow it. It's like, okay, like, yeah. I mean, and you just like numbed it. It's like, all right, this is not shocking at all. They just did that. Like that's what bad teams do. And
you almost want to laugh because it's just
laugh at misery.
Yeah,
they're 11-16-4. Like they're bad, and it's frustrating. Of course, the number one pick potentially is a defenseman. It's like, oh man, we can never be bad when there's a good forward at the board. But it's just one of those, just another one of those years where it just seems. We haven't even hit Christmas yet.
And it's already, people are checked out.
It feels like it's done, and we still have 50 games. Yeah, this is game 32. Like, we have 50 games left.
Yeah.
After tonight.
Not even halfway through the season.
Yeah, like a third. So it's just a little less than a third, but I mean a little more than a third. Probably like
You're
40%.
nearing a half.
Sure.
You're nearing 50%.
It just, I don't know. It's hard for me to care because it's just the same mistakes over and over. I'm waiting for a trade. Like, we'll talk more about them next week, and hopefully
they have a game in the win column at that point. But
let's see what they.
It is also Christmas next week. I think they'll beat Toronto at home because Toronto it's a house of horrors here in Buffalo for them.
Nope, Toronto will beat them.
You think?
Not a chance to beat Toronto. There's a really good chance they don't beat anyone until Christmas because they play Chicago on the 27th, and that might be their win because they're playing the Islanders on the 23rd. In New York, and they can never beat the Islanders. They're going to Boston the 21st, and they're going to host Toronto. I mean, maybe tonight. I mean, if they don't win tonight, I don't think they're going to win the next 10 days, which they haven't won a freaking hockey game since November 23rd, and it's December 17th. I mean, someone do the math. It's like 24 days.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, they haven't won a game. They haven't won a game in this time zone.
Nope.
Since November 14th against St. Louis 4-3 in overtime.
Yeah.
That was the 17th game of the year, and now we are on the
It's December 17th.
That was the 17th game of the season. This is the 32nd game of the season.
So you've literally.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Very, very fun, but moving past that because that's just not negative energy. And,
yes.
It was very positive. This pod. Josh Allen, oh my gosh, might have just locked up the MVP. Might be
Superman.
Yeah. And then it's the Sabres, and it's the complete creators. But luckily for you, listeners, we do have a little bit of a happy note.
Can I make another happy note before you make this happy note?
Well, are you gonna say the Bandits are 2-0?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
No.
Save what you're gonna say.
I wasn't gonna bring that up actually, but yeah.
No, the Bandits are 2-0. The Bandits are 2-0.
I was saying I wasn't gonna bring that up. I wasn't gonna bring that up in the moment, but yes.
Yeah, they haven't even played a game in Banditland yet, and they're 2-0.
They've won what 18-7 and
18-7 and 16-7.
Yeah.
They've gone on like
the
6 goal runs in the fourth quarter, back to back. Like they're wagon. They're the same team they were last season, the same squad pretty much. So expect a 3-peat.
That's a culture and a team that just knows how to win.
Exactly.
Right? They had the little
They're the flagship team of KeyBank Center. Rebrand KeyBank to Bandits. That's what needs to happen.
Like last year, they had that little lull where I think they were like 6-6 or whatever.
They were 500. Yeah,
man, they're having issues, and
the championship hangover wore off. Man, they took the Advil, got out of the slump, and went out. Drank the Bloody Mary. They got out of there. So I can't. That's a winning team, winning culture, like you said, and rebrand KeyBank Center. That's my new hashtag. I'm going to start throwing out there. Rebrand to the Bandits, but they play their home opener the 28th. You get a banner raising at KeyBank Center, so go check that out if you can. It's always fun to go see a Bandits game. They're never dull because
they're always exciting.
Yeah, people care about that team. It's really interesting. Like when we went to our first Bandits game, remember this because we went to our first lacrosse game together. It was such a weird feeling being in that building and feeling passion. That is the weirdest feeling I've probably ever experienced. That place rumbling with excitement. The floor shaking. Jumping next to everybody and hugging random people because they just scored it's coming down to the wire. And then you go to a Sabres game and it's just whatever. But yeah, the Bandits are 2-0. They come back home for the banner raising the 28th, so that'll be a good game.
Is that their next game, or do they?
Next game, they're off this week.
Who do they play on the 28th?
I think Rochester. Let me see.
The Nighthawks?
Yeah, they already played them, I want to say.
Yeah, I thought that was their first game.
They played their first game and beat them. If the internet would work, I'd be able to tell you. Yeah, they played the Rochester Nighthawks, and then they played the Ottawa Black Bears out on the West Coast.
I thought that's who they played.
It was 15-7 and 18-7, yeah. And then they play Rochester at home, and then Toronto at home, the rivalry. They're at home for 4 straight games. Man. Yeah, 4 straight games. So they started on the road, but you get a lot of Bandit land coming up. So, I'm more of a fan of them than I am of the Sabres at this point. So that's, it's really
bandwagon.
Yeah, I am a bandwagon. After that one game we went to, I was all in. I also work the game, so I pay attention. But
True. But on to our last happy note
tidbit.
Yeah. Both Joseph and I, in our first year playing dynasty fantasy football in our league, have made it to the end.
The championship.
The end of the journey. The championship game.
It's a head-to-head.
Myself versus Joe.
It's a Buffalonian Bowl, not the ones you've seen on YouTube.
Not flag football.
No, this is a whole different one.
But a different FF, fantasy football.
Yes, FF.
But, yeah, I mean, listen, it was an exciting week. Joe kind of had his team up and down, but
it was something.
Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, man, to combine for 67 points, ended up carrying him to the win.
Mm-hmm.
And then my team, it wasn't looking good. I'm gonna be honest.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. Going into Monday night the doubleheader on Monday Night Football, I was given a 34% chance to win.
Yeah.
I had Hawkinson and Jefferson versus Darnell Mooney in a 24-point deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know, I just needed to score 24 points because Darnell Mooney didn't score a single point.
Yes.
Unfortunately for Statistician Ginge,
yes,
whose season comes to an end.
Friend of the show.
Ended his season. He was pretty upset.
He's had a rough go of it. He broke his hand in the Buffalonian Bowl, and then this.
Yeah, just a gut punch. And, I said this to Joe. I've played fantasy football for, 10 years now. I'm in my first year. I remember we drafted Peyton Manning in the first round, and everyone was roasting us because that's something you're supposed to do.
Right.
Little did they know that was 2013 Peyton Manning who broke the NFL record for passing yards and passing touchdowns.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like taking Allen in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but no rushing upside.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, so I've been playing for a decade. This is the first year I've done Dynasty, and I said this to Joe before we started recording. It felt different than a redraft playoff. In redraft, fantasy football, like when you lose, it sucks.
Yeah, but you're like, oh, next year I'll redraft.
But you're like, next year it's
Mhm.
like, all right, what am I gonna do differently? Maybe I should, pick the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like this, like some moves or whatever.
You can rebuild. It's an instant rebuild. Like you get to.
It's a fresh slate.
Yes, clean slate right away.
Clean slate. And it's like, all right, I'll just draft a different strategy next year, or maybe I did well and I had bad luck.
Yeah.
This year, in playing Dynasty, it's like, it's very much like Dan Campbell said after the Dynasty Championship game. Like, you might just never be back. Like, this might be your opportunity. This may be your shot.
This might be it. Yeah.
And like,
you got to go for that onside kick at 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, man. It might be your shot. Who knows?
You know what? Can I just say a brief point about
on
that? 'Cause I actually did forget to mention this. I didn't mind the onside kick. And
I didn't either.
I gotta be honest. I think people like making fun of doing that are really exposing themselves.
Yeah.
From not watching what was happening in the game. They
couldn't stop Josh Allen.
Stop him.
Yeah.
But the big thing that no one has brought up. First off, it was a great onside kick, as mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Really, Matt Callenster just like punched it out of the sideline.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to return it. But the fact is, like, okay, maybe the Bills possessed the ball for like a minute and kick a field goal. If they would have kicked the field goal there, it still would have been it would have been a 30-point game instead of a 2-possession game. Obviously, they got all the way down to the 5 and scored a touchdown. But like you saw that then with 8 minutes to go, they're down 10. They kicked off, and Buffalo took 6 minutes off the clock and kicked the field goal.
Yeah.
So it was like, the onside kick was kind of like maybe we could stop them inside the 50, and they kick a field goal, and it's still 2-possession game, and we get the ball like 2 minutes later instead of 6 minutes later in game time.
Yeah. Well, he even said, in hindsight, if I knew he was going to take it down to the 5, I wouldn't have done it. But like,
So
I don't think it's. Can you imagine if Sean McDermott did that?
Yeah, it would have been bad.
That would. Can you imagine? But anyway, I hope you know I wasn't clowning on him for it. It's just kind of funny.
No.
Like
I
12
wasn't
minutes.
thinking it was. Other people were, and I was like, I didn't think that was that bad of a decision. I think it made some sense.
No, that's why
it's still incredibly. It's reckless. I'm not going to say it's not.
Well, that's the Dan Campbell style of coaching.
Yeah.
Like I expected something like that to happen.
But going back,
to the dynasty playoffs.
To the dynasty playoffs, man. Like it was like going into Monday night. It's like, man, I'm going to lose, and my season's over, and.
And you and I have gone all in, trading picks away.
That's what I'm saying. Like you trade picks away. Like when you have a shot in Dynasty, you take your shot. And I was like, man, this is my shot. And like, I do. I think I have a couple. I'm not saying this is my only year window. Like I don't think that.
No, we all the teams at the top currently, I think, have a few years.
But my thing in this league is that like there was a team that finished third in points, went 6-8, and missed the playoffs. And I was like, that could very much be me next year.
Right.
Like this could be my shot. And to think that my season was going to potentially end, but now, it's also pretty upsetting for you because you lost David Montgomery, to the MCL injury.
You have Jahmyr Gibbs,
and then I have Jahmyr Gibbs. So I was like, oh my god, like I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose, and I have a massive like competitive advantage over the guy who's going to who I would potentially play.
Is Bucky Irving coming back this week? Because I'm going to have a problem with Rashad White then.
Yeah. He played last week, but I think it was like limited
participant, but. Yeah, I'm going to have a problem if he's back at full snaps because then Rashad White's back on the back burner. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, either way,
but listen, you have Josh Allen.
I do.
That's all that matters.
And he's playing the shitty Patriots.
But I think that's going to work against your favor a little bit.
I think they're going to run the ball.
Because I think they're going to run the ball really well. And I think the defense is going to play really well. And this might be like he plays 3 quarters and like scores like 20 fantasy points. Which is, still good. I'm not saying
anything over 18, I'm taking because that's like the base.
No, you need more than that.
Well, I know I need more than that.
You need him to score 30.
I know. Okay, I know because Derrick Henry scored 6 points against the goddamn Giants, and I can't believe that.
Now he plays the Steelers,
and then he plays the Steelers, who actually he might divisional game that could be a better performance for him somehow. But
it's gonna be a good game though. I think. Unfortunately, obviously David Montgomery gets injured.
He came back in the game, too. Did you see that?
I think you and I, though, honestly, I'm not going to lie, him getting hurt did help me a little bit because Jahmyr Gibbs scored those 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and that's also why I won.
Montgomery tends to be their red zone merchant if they're short.
But, I think it's going to be close. I couldn't do the scores because they haven't projected them out.
We'll see tomorrow.
But I think
we'll update you on Friday.
If we did them off last week, I was expected to score 145. You were expected to score a shade under. I think you were like 144.3. So that's
pretty even.
That's pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much a coin flip. And
I mean, it wouldn't have had it any other way than me and you at the end. So I mean, that's pretty cool. The first year to
a championship on the line.
Yeah, the championship on the line. But No, it's dynasty gives you that extra. If you're not in a dynasty fantasy football league, establish one immediately, because like you said, the redrafts, the repercussions are if you have a punishment or you didn't win your pot, whatever, the money, right? This is like, okay, we might not be good for like 5 years if this thing tacks on. My Super Bowl window or championship window just closed 1 year, and then it's going to be full on tank and rebuild time at some point down the line.
Well, especially because again, I'm not trashing on Statistician's team, but I was a 15-point favorite going into the weekend.
Yeah,
like I was a heavy favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have lost, I'm like, I'm never going to get a better draw than that in the first round.
Right. I was nervous playing your brother Jeremy. I thought that was going to be an interesting. It ended up being a close matchup. It came down to Monday night because he had a lot of players playing on Monday night. His two main ones, Bijan and Sam Darnold, and both of them luckily shot the bed. So I had the Vikings defense, who actually played pretty well last night. So a couple fumble recovery, and a fumble forced, and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting. We'll preview it more on Friday when we know the actual projections between the two of us and the injury reports and see. But
it's just unbelievable to me that I'm playing my uncle in a family league.
Mm-hmm.
I played him in week 14, the last week of the season.
Are you in the playoffs in that one too?
Yeah, I beat him that week, even though Josh Allen scored 52 points.
Yeah,
I'm now playing him in a 2-week playoff. Started last week.
I hate the 2-week playoffs.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
I lost the first week by 10 points because Kyler Murray on my quarterback scored 10 points, and his quarterback Josh Allen scored 42. And now I'm playing week 2. I need to make up 10 points, and I'm still playing against Josh Allen. Yeah. It's brutal. I love the man, but
I mean, like you said though, Josh Allen's matchup's a little more favorable for less points this week.
Sure,
potentially.
I love Josh, man, and that's also coming off. I also played him against Josh. I think this is my fourth straight week playing Josh because I played you like week 13 against the Niners.
Yeah, and now you're playing him
and he
again.
had the double touchdown.
Yep.
I still beat you, but like he had like all of a sudden I was like, holy crap! Like you come back, like that was 10 points.
Yeah, he had the passing and receiving touchdown.
Yeah, so I'm really done playing Josh Allen. I love the man to death.
Yeah,
he's like everyone's like, yeah, he has like the 5th most fantasy points all time the last 2 weeks. It's like, yeah, I know. Like,
yeah, now you're playing him again in both leagues.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I'm in the semifinals in my family league as well, playing my. I don't know who I'm playing the next week, but it's someone. I don't know. It might be my cousin. So we'll see. We might. That's the one I won last year. The could be a repeat. Who knows? Could go back. As long as I'm in the championship, I'm okay because we get the trophy. There's a second place one and a first place one. So
I don't play for second place.
If I go, I don't play for.
We
second
are not
place.
making a second place trophy in this dynasty league. We were making a first
place trophy, so, and then we're getting a toilet trophy for the last place finisher.
Potentially.
And then we all no, never mind. I'm not going to say that. But I think without further ado, unless you have anything else to add, that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom, how do we always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills. We'll talk to you on Friday.